primary teachers, welcome to Best Practices Weekly. In last week's edition of Best Practices Weekly, the early elementary edition, we looked closely at how to do and how to prepare a close read in primary classrooms. And I promised you that today on this week's edition, we would look specifically at how a first grade teacher implemented close reading in her first grade classroom. So that's what we'll do today. We'll talk kind of the nitty-gritty and the specifics about each step and what it looked like in a first grade classroom. You can read all of the article, Students' Close Reading of Science Text, in the October 2013 edition of The Reading Teacher. And just to summarize again the purpose of the article, teachers are finding that students really are not prepared to encounter challenging science text. So close reading is just a strategy, a tool for your toolbox to help support students as they come into contact with increasingly complex text. To exactly what Mrs. Weller, the first grade teacher that is one of the authors of the article, what she did with her students. I want to tell you about the upfront work that she did. She chose the book Starfish. She chose the purpose of the close read, that they were looking for key details about starfish. And she made a graphic organizer for students to fill in as they read. So all of that was kind of her upfront work and her text-dependent questions. We talked about those last week. Things that are sending the students back into the text with a very specific purpose. Her graphic organizer was just a 4-part. She took a piece of paper, divided into 4 parts. She listed the information she wanted students to look for in each corner about where they lived, about features about their body, and then in the middle it just said starfish. So that was kind of the upfront work that she did before the close read. So just keep in mind, before you start a close read in your classroom, you want to choose a text that's worthy of a close read, that's short, not too long, but that has some depth to it. Choose the purpose of the read. Are you focusing in on key vocabulary? Are you focusing in on main idea and details or key details? Is it a text structure thing that you want to focus in on? And then go ahead and prepare the text in the graphic organizers and your text-dependent questions ahead of time. We talked last week about the first read, making sure that students have an opportunity to kind of productively struggle through the text. So the way that this teacher supported that was she did a shared reading because the text was a little bit more complex for her first grade class. So she put it under a document camera so they could all see it together, and they did a shared reading. As they went through, she did scaffold by helping point out some key details about starfish, and she stopped every few pages to give students an opportunity to fill out the graphic organizer that she had given them with some of the key details that they were seeing in the book. That wasn't the only chance that they had to fill out key details. We'll talk about how they went back to the graphic organizer later to fill in more information. But she did stop every few pages to give them an opportunity to write down what they were noticing in the text as key details about starfish. And we've talked about close reading being a read of a text where you're rereading it multiple times for a specific purpose. So during the second reading, the teacher read the book to the students, and she read it in chunks. And as she read, students were encouraged to confirm the information that they had in their graphic organizer, and then again add more key details. So there's still this really specific focus on getting into the text to find key details about starfish. After that reading, students were given time to chat. Remember, we talked about the chatting and charting. So chat with a partner. When the class encountered trouble with finding key details, she prompted them with their partners to return back into the text. So those text-dependent questions help keep the focus on not I've seen a starfish, not I want to see a starfish, I bought one at the store, I saw one at the beach, but to keep returning to the text to confirm their key details, and if they had questions, to go back and look in the text for the answers. During the last reading of the text, she knew that students had a pretty firm grasp on the key details, so she challenged them to a different task. She asked them to pay attention to the author's descriptive language, and she incorporated the Common Core Reading Informational Standard 1.4, which requires first graders to ask and answer questions to clarify information in a text. So she's drawing them to the descriptive language that the author used, and she only did that because she knew that they had the key details down from the first 2 readings, so the third reading could really focus in on something a little bit different, but still that descriptive language would help support the key details about starfish. And the final project, all of this close reading about starfish, gathering information, filling in the graphic organizer, wasn't just for an activity. There was a final project where students needed to answer the question, what did the author want us to know at the end of this book? She provided sentence starters as scaffolding for students who needed it, but students could certainly do their own sentences. She reminded them to look for information within the text. And then students pulled all their key ideas about starfish together to write a class book about starfish. So I love that the final project really incorporated all that they had learned and done through the close reading. It wasn't just a close reading for the experience. It wasn't just to fill in information on a graphic organizer. There was an end purpose for that in a published book. So I love the community work of the class doing that together and for them having a really clear purpose for why they gathered all that information. Okay, so let's start a conversation about how close reading is going in your primary classrooms. Give this a try, pick a book that's worthy to be read closely, come up with your text-dependent questions and your focus. What are you going to focus on? Key ideas and details? Is it text structure that you need to teach? Is it new vocabulary about a certain content area? Remember that this article focused in specifically on science because we have seen students struggling through complex science text. So give this a try in your classrooms and let us know how it's going. Let us know your tips and tricks for close reading and using those tools in your toolbox. Thanks for joining us.